Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Donnie B all day, rocking the Hawaiian Hawaii. So, guys, we're doing a little bit of a different verses today. We're doing a verses with an explanation of why and how these should be verses. So, what we're talking about is combat knives, real combat, like knives made for combat, what it takes to be a combat knife, why it would be made a combat knife, and how it's a combat knife. I even have an extra one that I'll bring in right here because this thing is dope. All right, so I forget what the actual name is though, so that's going to be a trick. So I'm going to talk about the different kinds of combat knives there are. You have stuff like this, right? This is a combat utility knife, right? It's the Glock. This thing is a freaking tank. As you can see, that blade goes through some use. This is one of those knives that I can take out any freaking time. It's a Glock field knife. I could take this out anytime, anywhere, do anything with it and have no worries. As far as torture tests are, like real torture tests, which I really don't like torture tests. This is the only knife I think I've ever done an actual torture test on, but I had 175% confidence that who cares? I mean, this thing is nasty. But this, just like the world famous one, this is, they're not combat fighting knives, they are combat utility knives. And I'm going to get into the differences of what's what. That's right. Of what's what and how they're different. So, combat utility knives are combat utility. They're made to do things like open your MREs, cut your rope, things like that. Cut your cordage for if you're doing anything with plastic explosives, right? That's what that's made for. That's what that's made for. And last ditch efforts, it's made to, oh, I ran out of bullets. If I have to defend myself with it, it's sharp and pointy, so it will work, right? But it's not anywhere near made to be a fighting knife, right? When you're talking about a fighting knife, a fighting combat knife, this buck right here, I forget what this one is called because it's got one of them names that is harder to remember. But as you can see, I've been using this one a little bit. I've been taking it out because I freaking love it. Look up buck and you'll find it, man. Or just look up my last buck video. Just go through, scroll through, find a bunch. This thing is nasty. Now this is also great for opening MREs and doing stuff like that and cutting your cordage and you're a pilot, you gotta cut that strap, you gotta get the hell out. Let me tell you something. This is a straight up fighting knife though. This is made light, fast, and when I say light, it's heavy for a blade this size, but light enough to get around. It's really, really nice. This is a great combat fighting knife, but that can be used for utility purposes. So it would still be considered a combat utility knife because it's an all-around blade. But for me, it's more of a stabby. Freaking amazing, right? And the fact that, you know, you're all mollied up. It's put it on your gear, compatible, put it on your belt, however you wear one. So I'm going to show you when it comes down to fighting knives. This is the dbad OEF Defender. Everybody knows it. This one is designed straight up as a fight. This isn't designed to open MREs. This isn't designed to cut your cordage. This isn't designed to open that can of miniature wieners. Really, that's an army thing. They give you those little Vienna sausages. This is a straight up fighting knife. You see the angle? It's made for one thing: hacking, stabbing, slashing. That's what this knife is. So when it comes down to combat knives, this thing isn't your trenching tool. Nope, nothing like that. You know what I mean? You're not digging your latrine. Can it? Sure. Can it open an MRE? Absolutely. Can it cut your cordage? Sure it can. Ooh, look at that. But this is a purpose-built fighter. And I have showed you over and over again how well this does in the field as far as this is the only knife I have on me. Can I survive with it in a camp situation? Oh, hell yeah, without a doubt. But I designed it. My design is a fighting knife, and I designed it to be able to be worn with today's combat uniforms because I'm kind of like that. Everything's got to match. So getting on to the one I carried in Afghanistan, right? So now this knife has actually tasted blood. This one is a real combat knife. This is made to be your trenching tool, your MRE tool, your hammer things in tool. This is made to be able to cut the cordage for plastic explosives. And if you guys have ever seen the pictures of me where I made my bomb, I played with some plastic out there. This is the knife I used then too. This knife is phenomenal. And as far as the category that I'm going over today, this knife would fit. It is thick, it's robust. The handle is a glass reinforced nylon. This is the Gerber LMF2 infantry, or infantry LMF2. It goes like that. So, but this one is awesome. You have for lineage, cordage, it can strap to anything. I took off the other part, but it does have that. It has a sharpener built in. This knife is straight up combat ready, combat built. It is built to defend yourself with. That's one of the purposes it's made for, and that works. Believe me, that works. And it's made to be able to do all the other tasks that all these do. But this one is made to be a fighter as well, similar to this one. So I guess if I was going to compare this one to anything, and who knows, I might have to do a versus, these two are made pretty much for the same functionality, except this is more of a combat knife, a combat utility as far as, like, all-around combat, I should say, not combat utility. More of one just because of the girth and the width. It's just made to be able to handle more things like your trenching. Trenching is a thing that is used in combat. So that leaves me to two knives designed for combat, like all sectors of combat designed for, not just good for, like some of those, like all of them are good for pretty much anything in combat, but they're not all designed. I mean, you try and trench with a blade this skinny, you know what I mean? It's going to take you quite a while. Even with this, it's going to take you a little while. Trenching is serious business. And when you have a thin edge, like this one is a slicer. This is a slicer, man. Remember, this was modeled after a hunting knife, and they needed a knife quickly. And if you remember, like you were there, World War I comes around and the USN pilot knives were made. I have one. I restored one. It's awesome. I freaking love it. And basically what they did is they needed, wartime came. So they needed things for war. So what they did is they bought out a Remington hunting knife factory, and they turned the Remington hunting knife into the USN, and it turned into the pilot's emergency blade, right? So when people see a knife that is carried by soldiers, the first thought is, oh, it's a fighting knife. This is not a fighting knife. Understand that. This is not made for that. This is a hunting knife that they just repurposed as a combat knife, right? And it works really freaking good as a utility knife. It works really good as a camp knife. I would rather have this in the camp than in combat. Like, I would never, ever take this to combat unless it's the only knife I had. But as far as a hunting knife or a camping knife, holy crap, this thing's amazing. I need to do a Do I Still Love It, because people, I think, get confused when I talk about K-Bar. I think they get very confused on what I feel about this. But that's what it is. I mean, you see it's very, very thin. It's very narrow. So for trenching, things like that, you have to worry about snapping your tip off. So you're not going to have a really long, thin tip on a trenching tool. You're just not going to do it. For cutting cordage and detonation cord, yeah, it's a slicer. It's, you know what I mean? But it was made to cut MREs. It was made to cut into your canned goods and things like that. That's what this was made for. That's literally what this was made for. It was outdated and out-purposed, right? But that doesn't mean it doesn't have a place. And I think, a lot of people will think, yeah, but people have been carrying them forever, and people, guys from World War I to Vietnam have been blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, but it's a nostalgia thing. There's There's nothing about this that says, oh my God, that's going to give you everything. This will do it more. No, this is a better combat knife than this will ever be. But the nostalgia that's wrapped up in this thing just keeps people buying them. And they should buy them because it's a good knife, especially if you use it for what it's really made for before the military repurposed it. And that's where we get to our versus. The Sheffield MOD. Yes, I love this knife. Yes, I use this knife. And yes, that's still the natural edge. You can see how much abuse this thing is taking. And it has taken, not taking, well, it's taking because I'm going to do it tomorrow, today. And this edge is still like out of the box. Doesn't have much of an edge, and people hate that. They say, "Oh, what a crappy knife, man! This thing, look at it. It's basically like a crowbar with almost an edge." Yeah, because it's a combat knife. This thing's made for trenching. This thing's made for getting through whatever you need to get through. If like you see the Jimmy Lyle Rambo knives, and what do they have on them? They have that spine with a separator to be able to cut wire. It's basically chicken wire is what it's made to cut. This will do that without that. This will literally do that without that. This is an absolute, look how wide it is. Look at the shape of the blade. See how it's got that nice drop point there. It's made, this thing is going to, you need to trench, you need to get through things. This knife is going to do it all day long. And it's properly balanced. So if you need to, for it to be a rib sticker, if you need for it to be your fighting knife, this thing is built to be able to handle all tasks. And I mean all tasks equally, right? So it will trench as equally good as it will kill. And that is a main thing when it comes to combat knives. So what am I putting it up against? The dbad War Machine. Is it a clip point? It is a clip point, but it is a big, fat, thick blade. I mean, it's a thick blade. When we put them up together, we see that it has to be a big, fat, thick blade. When you're talking about all-round combat purposes, that's what it is. The edge on this knife, you are going to see, that's the natural edge. As much as I've used it, I haven't done anything to this edge yet, right? This edge is made to be a combat edge. If it's too sharp and too fine, you are going to break the edge, or it's going to dull too fast. Remember, a thinner profile, not a long profile, but a shorter profile on the edge is going to last longer than a really finely sharpened edge. And I'm going to show you one thing about this. You'll notice that it doesn't have a giant edge on it. That's so it'll stay sharper longer. What makes this gives this the ability to stay like razor sharp compared to this is the fact that it's that thin. So it's made for slicing and cutting more rather than combat applications. If I was digging through dirt with rock, if I was trenching through rock, this is going to chip like everywhere. It's just going to, just chip away. But if you're not using it for stuff like that, the edge is going to last really freaking long on this. I want to show you, I think this one, you see this one, how it has a longer, see how much carved out there is there? It's still not as much as some others, but it's got a long one. Yeah, it's got a long one. So you can see where, like, I wouldn't trust this for digging through rocky terrain. No way. But that's not what it's made for. So that's where combat edges come into play. A combat edge isn't as fully crazy sharp, and this one's still pretty sharp for a combat edge, but it's not as crazy sharp as a utility knife, right? Utility knives are made for slicing. These are made for gutting, digging, cutting open stuff, and just all-around stuff that it needs to be. So let's take a look at these two. Now, I don't have all the oh, you know what? I'll just tape measure. Hold on a second. Wow, I'm back so fast. All right, so I didn't bring up all the stats and everything. So what I'll do is I'll just tape measure everything to show you what's what and how it is and why it is. Now, this one was British military, designed by Sheffield. They just did an ingenious job on a lot of this. This one was designed by some idiot who wears sunglasses in the house. And it was designed because that person, has done tours in combat. So that person knows what it needs to be an all-around combat knife. I didn't take a design from a hunting knife and send it to combat. I went to combat, then designed a combat knife. See how that works? It's a little different. So let's go over some of the things. Overall length on the Sheffield MOD. The D stands for dude, that's awesome. Let's see, is about 12 and a half inches overall. Great length for a combat knife. The dbad War Machine is 13 and a half inches overall. I should have known that. But I gotta show you. So there is 1 inch longer of knife with the dbad. The blade on the Sheffield is a great 1095. 1095 high carbon, 7-inch blade of madness. It is awesome. Widest point, you are looking at I'm getting a little wobbly here. Let me see, where exactly is the widest point? 1 3/4. It looks like pretty much 1 3/4. So it's a nice wide blade. Let's see how thick it is. We are looking at a 1/4 inch. So it is just a hair under 1/4 inch, but it's about a quarter. Let's call it a 1/4 inch, right? The inside grip, where you put your actual hand, is about 4 1/4 inches, right? Normally you want your knife to be between 4 and 4.5 on the inside grip, and maybe 4 3/4, right? So now let's look at the dbad War Machine, and we are looking at a 8.5 inch blade. We are looking at a full, very, very full 1/4 inch. It may be like 7 millimeters, maybe slightly more than a 1/4 inch. It's pretty fat. You are looking at a widest point of 1 3/4 inches. Really, really good. You're looking at an overall grip of just over 4 1/4, like just over, so around 4 1/4. So the inside grip is almost like, it's pretty freaking identical. You can see where the swoop starts. It's pretty identical, so you can see how the hand fits. My hand fits right up against this little swedge. This one has a little bit more room, right? Which means this is going to be a tighter grip for this one. And this, they both feel really good. This one, let's go over. We're gonna get to using these, I promise. So this one, we are looking at 1 inch wide in the grip. This one, we are looking at 1 1 1/8. So it gives you a little bit more handle in the hand than this one, but this one has a flat, where this one is a little round. So basically, the grip on this one is still like an amazing grip. It's only 1 inch this way, but it truly makes up for it with the distance here and the contouring, where this one is made to fit in the hand. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do tight grip and twist. I can turn it if I really... It's hard. You can hear it. You have to muscle it to turn it. This one, because it's flat, should be a little better than that. It's slightly, but the problem is once you get it to the apex to here, then it turns faster, but nobody holds their knife like this, so that really doesn't matter. You're holding your knife like this, both of them are going to be very grippy. This one comes, are they both wood? I almost forget, I forget what this material is. I'm not sure if it's wood or not, but it might be. This one is rosewood. But here's the thing with the kukri house in Nepal, if you order yours, if you like the rosewood, which I do, then you can have it with rosewood. If you want it in G10 or if you want it in micarta, say so. They'll just send it in G10 or micarta. Both are pinned on. Both are true full tang. This one has these little lines right here, and it's to divert sweat and to offer a little bit of grip. This one does not, which you'd think, okay, it makes it slick, but they do something different. What they do is they countersink right here your pins, and they leave these little holes right here, right? Then you see this little trench right here. It goes all the way around. I didn't do this on mine because I think this is genius, and I didn't want to take this from them because this is something that I would have never thought of, and it's brilliant. If you're working in cold weather, basically what happens is this keeps your hand off the steel. So if this is freezing and you don't happen to have a glove on, your skin isn't touching that. That's freaking genius, man. I absolutely love that they do that. This one has a lanyard hole. This one doesn't. If you want a lanyard hole, all you have to do is say, I would like a lanyard hole. KHHI will do you a lanyard hole. Now, the one thing that this is no good for is if you're pounding down on something, which is a combat thing, sometimes you have to break stuff open or hammer something in. You will, as you can see, start to damage your scales. This one, you still have some steel here, so if you're aiming right, you're going to hit the steel. If you aim wrong, you're going to crack some wood. But if you decide to get the G10 or the micarta, you're not going to really worry about that. I have used it to bang down on some stuff, and I with batoning, hit the end. I never broke it. It's still good. So that's it. That's it for that. That is just genius, though. That's genius. So let's give them a good side by side before we run out and play, and you can definitely see the difference in blade length and shape. This is going to be more of the stabbing full combat. This is going to be more of the trenching full combat. Both are going to do it all. I say let's stop talking and let's take these two beasts out. Oh, real quick, I'm going to show you. Real quick, sorry. The fit and finish on these guys, not perfect. Not. And I appreciate that because look at that. Look at that. Do you know why? Because this is made for a purpose. This isn't made to be some showroom piece. It's not. This is made to work. It's made to put on the side of a soldier and him say, I have 100% confidence that I'm going to live. This one, look at this. It's all welded on there, so this will never come loose. But look at that. You know what that means? That is a hand-forged piece of knife. This is made for one purpose. Keep your butt alive. And so when you look at, like, you look at this and you say, okay, well, that's all done really nice. There's no gapping. There's no, so it's actually still really good. But all here is all hand welded. It's all hand welded, all hand done. And when you're talking about a hand forged knife, you want that. You want that because I look at this. Where is it? Right here. I look at this and it's perfect. This thing is perfect. It is gorgeous. It's made on a machine. It's made on a machine. Nobody put their blood, sweat, and tears into this, but it's perfect, right? It's perfectly made. It's beautiful. This thing, if you start jamming it up while you're out there in combat, who cares? It came jammed up, right? It's perfect, right? So that's the difference there. Let's take them out. So we did a whole lot of yada yada. There's like 24 minutes of yada yada. So we're gonna do the rest of this pretty quick. I'm just gonna show you like some of the stuff that would be important, right? Some of the stuff that would be important. And one might be better at some of the stuff than the other one is at some of the stuff. Anybody want to send me a new one of these? And so that's what we're going to do. So we're not going to do drop tests and this and that, but what we're going to do is reality stuff. So I know I have, let's see, some leather down here, cutting leather. We have these straps right here. So actually, I'll just use the leather. I have this leather. So needing to cut things in combat is pretty important. This edge, and you can see that's multiple layers of very thick leather. These are saddlebags. This edge just cruises right through. So as far as cutting, no problem. This one, because of the drop point, is harder to get in. So you really have to work on it. And I just went through one layer, and the second layer it started to come through and then stopped. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use a little bit of might. We're going to get that through. And remember, this is a crowbar with kind of an edge on it. And then we're going to slice, and it goes straight through. So getting it in is hard. You got to spit on it. Getting it in is hard, but once it's there, this offers just enough to be able to make the cuts you need. All right. So we have this extension cord here. I haven't fixed it yet, so I might as well just cut away a little more. Talking about cutting cordage and doing explosive cord, right? There's wire in here. This is a nice big fat beast. It just absolutely tears through. This guy right here, it just absolutely tears through. I mean, there's no resistance, there's no slowing it down, there's no edge damage at all. The J. Adams will do it, the War Machine will do it. Both are just phenomenal at getting that kind of stuff done. So combat, gotta make camp defenses or extra like booby traps. It's got to be able to do that. Got to. For an all-out camp knife, combat knife, it's got to. Now this one is made for more practical purposes. As far as, can I take this as my camp knife? Oh, 100%. I proved that when I did my initial review of this. Camp knife all day long. This has literally become one of my favorite knives to carry. This thing is actually really freaking awesome as a regular use knife. So now we have this guy, and people say, well, it's impossible with this because it's so round. All right, well, let's see, because for all the haters out there that hated the Sheffield MOD because, oh, it's just a crowbar, doesn't really have an edge, I proved in a video when I did my review that just because it's shaped the way it's shaped doesn't mean that it's useless as far as an edge is concerned. If I really needed to use it in combat to make my booby traps and make my extra weaponry or protection or this and that, or to survive out in the woods or out in the desert somewhere, it's still going to get the job done. No matter what, it's still getting the job done. These guys are both fantastic. The better cutter is definitely the War Machine. I'm talking definitely. I think that the building of this, the way it's constructed, I mean, I've never seen another knife built as well as this, as far as what they put into it from their mind into the design. I love it. So trenching, what we want to do is find an area that has slightly more stone under the earth. And I don't have a lot of stony area right here, but it's just a good way to show it off. Let's see if I can get you guys tilted a little forward. So yeah, we're in it. So here we go, trenching. Now trenching has different purposes. Right here, this is what you do for landmines when you are detecting and digging out landmines. You push, you twist, you turn. What I'm doing is I'm taking my edge and I'm getting it in between the rocks, in between the roots, in between the soil, and now I'm just able to dig out like a shovel, and I'm getting a mass amount of soil. So if I remove the soil that I just churned, I have this huge hole. What else does this do? If you are a combat unit where you are out somewhere behind enemy lines and you do not want to be found, seen, or known that you are there, if you have to poop, and everybody poops, believe me, there's even a book on it, you want to dig a hole so you can drop deuce in and then cover it, because the smell, the sight, anything is going to let an enemy soldier know that you were there is something you do not want. As far as digging a hole, there are no better combat knives than this one right here for digging a hole. Trenching, that is a trenching master. And people, you say, oh, trenching, when do you use trenching, blah, 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 blah. So let me tell you something. From World War I all the way through Vietnam, when the USMC K-bar was really, really popular, about 1% of their soldiers actually used their knife in battle. About 1%, that's it. So to say, well, when are you going to do it? Well, when are you going to do it? Whenever the hell you want. So here we go. So now we're going to push, dig, turn. Push, turn, dig. Wrong. I did that backwards. Look at how much I'm just pulling up, right? It's just pulling up mass amounts of dirt. And the thing is, I don't have to worry about damaging my tip. I don't have to worry about damaging my edge. And I can just push, dig, turn through roots and rocks all day long and not worry about damaging anything. So this is what combat knives are. Combat knives are basically that with an extra ability. And let's get to that real quick. So delimbing a person happens to be a combat need, right? Somebody's coming at you. I got the Sheffield MOD, and you need to be quick, and you need to be fast, and you need to make a strike. A clean cutting tool. Look at that. Look at that. Just barely holding on because I nicked it. It's all the way through. A clean cutting tool that you can hit with, that you can stab with, and you can puncture with. And this thing just made a V cut. Boom. That you know that you can use to defend yourself or anybody else with. This one is even more brutal on the cut. And when I'm talking about clean, I mean, somebody's coming at you and they got their hands up and you cut off a finger, they're not putting their hands up anymore, right? It's just not going to happen that way. But keeping it and being able to use it as a defensive tool and an offensive tool, if somebody's swinging a bat at you, which is a common weapon, you want to be able to block and counter. Both of these knives are great for blocking and countering. As a matter of fact, I did a basic knife strike video a long time ago, and this is the knife I chose to use in my basic knife strike video because it's really good. Now, when we're talking about if I could have only one, this is the point where I'm so happy I don't ever have to say that, because I can have both. This one, I can tell you right now, 100% certainty, this knife, even the ones I've showed you inside, I will never ever part with. I will never get rid of those. I will never get rid of this. This is phenomenal, right? It's phenomenal. And yes, that's stuck in. You heard it. Oh, I think that's it right there. But this right here, man, this was purposely built. When I designed it for combat application, knowing what it takes and what you need to use out there. I know what I needed to do. I know what I needed my knife to do. And this thing would be every bit of that. My LMF Infantry 2 by Gerber, I used daily out there. As a matter of fact, when I was at Camp Black Horse in Kabul, Afghanistan, I used to carry my knife just like this. And if you've ever seen pictures of me, especially the pictures I put up with Tommy Davidson when he came and I was his personal security, I always had my knife right here. My coat was over it like this, so my handle was always ready for extraction. I always had it. When we would go to the gate at Camp Black Horse, we were a small fob inside of a big Afghan fob, right? So we'd have to cut through them just to get out or get to the gates. And when we get to the gates, we got used to seeing a lot of the Afghan soldiers, and you know, we became friendly with them. Me and this guy Jeff Freitas, another soldier, and so one of the lieutenants out there used to, whenever I come down, he loved my LMF infantry so much, literally so much, that I would have it on me, and I'd be doing something, talking, and he would come up from behind me and just reach over, grab my knife, and yank it out. And people that didn't know that we had this relationship would freak out immediately and just be on arms if they've never been to the gates with me. And I always tell them, no, it's okay, relax. And he'd walk over, he'd start cutting rope. He would start cutting, you know, the yellow, like the police do not cross strips. But he would just, anytime I was down at the gate and he was there, he would find something that he just needed to cut. There was just always something he needed to do. And he loved it. He loved it. And the reason he loved it was because the knife was made to work. And so knowing what that knife was used for, knowing what that knife could do and was ready to do and could do more of. And I the only thing that hinders that one is blade length, but I got to tell you, the blade length worked just fine for me. It did, but I still wanted just a little bit extra. So I wanted everything that I could get from the Infantry 2, the LMF Infantry 2 from Gerber, but I wanted it in a little bigger package, and I wanted it true full tang. That's what really separated it. For me, that was one of the perfect combat knives I could have ever used, but I wanted something slightly more perfect, just slightly more. And the weight distribution on this one is as good as it's gonna get for combat. If you've never been in a combat situation, if you've never been overseas in any kind of military situation, you might not understand what I'm saying and why I'm saying it. But the right knife makes a huge deal when you need the right knife. It's just the way it is. So, that being said, if I could have only one, I would keep my dbad War Machine. But since I don't have to only have one, I will never get rid of my Sheffield MOD. 2 freaking nominal blades. And if you have the chance to own one, whatever you like, get that one. If you have the chance to own 2, I would highly recommend you selling your wife. Selling some of that dishware you have that you don't use anymore, and buying yourself a couple of these guys right here. Fantastic knives right here, bro. Fan freaking tastic. Just dropped one. That's it. I am Donnie B all day. Sorry about the length of this video. Until next knife.